Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Healthy Living, Happy Life 3-Day Motivator. Yes, I said the Healthy Living, Happy Life 3-Day Motivator. I'm Denise Stiegel. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the CEO and curator at livinghealthylist.com, and I am also the author of this best-selling book that my husband's written on, Healthy Living, Happy Life. You guys see a theme here? I think so. So this book is really kind of the crux of what I talk about at Living Healthy List. It is what I've done as a coach. And truly the information that is in this book is what we're going to talk about in the next 3 days. So I hope everybody is here along with me. Let's see, I'm just going to take a look. I'm going to kind of scroll back and forth to see if I have some messages here or comments. Not at the moment. So anyway, welcome everyone to the 3-Day Motivator. Again, I'm Denise Stiegel, CEO and curator at livinghealthylist.com. And truly, the emphasis of everything that I do comes from this book, the concepts here. And we'll talk about that later. So let me start by saying this is not a challenge. Life is challenging enough without, kind of purposefully saying, oh, sure, let's just add one more. So what is this about? So my goal for the next 3 days is to motivate you in a way a challenge doesn't. A challenge kind of is like, okay, quickly, let's just do this one thing. And, maybe you get something from it, maybe you don't. Hi, Gail, it's good to see you, my friend. But a motivator, this is something that I really am hoping that's kind of going to give you a positive kick in the pants, let's just say. Healthy living, happy life means something a little bit different to everyone. And this is about finding a healthy lifestyle that works for you. You, not me, but you. And some of the concepts, or all of the concepts in this book, are things that can help you to do that. And so that's what we're going to kind of focus on in the motivator. So again, not a challenge, because challenges are kind of short and sweet. And if you don't succeed in a challenge, you kind of feel like, well, what the heck was that all about? But in this motivator, you will find things that will help you move forward. So what can you expect? And I apologize, guys. Yes, the head of the Healthy Living, Happy Life has a cold. Maybe it's allergies. We're going to go with that. I live in Minnesota, so we're going to go with allergies. Anyway, so what to expect? So we're going to be, me, you, all of us are going to be live in the Healthy Living, Happy Life Motivator pop-up Facebook group. And I'm going to be here from 11 to 12. I may not have all, an hour's worth of content that I want to share. So I want us to have a conversation, have some comments, and have a conversation if you guys are up for that. You're going to learn one thing every day that you can implement into defining your healthy lifestyle. Now, today I'm going to start with the thing that I think everybody needs to start with. And we'll get into that in a second. In the group, in the Facebook group, let's put questions and answers in there. When, sometimes you listen to the motivator, you listen to what I'm saying and you go, oh yeah, that's really a great idea. And then later on you go, oh, wait a minute, I didn't quite understand that completely. Put those questions in the Facebook group and, I'll answer them there. We can have a conversation there as well. Each day we have a couple of handouts. Some days I have one, some days I have two, and they all go together. So these are resources that I basically put together when I was creating the book, because I thought, having a book is great, but what happens when you kind of read a book is you read it and you go, oh, that was a really good book, and then you put it down and you forget about it. But when you do worksheets and you do some work along with it, it really kind of helps you, it helps kind of keep it in your mind. This is a book. If you don't have it, please find it on Amazon. It's in paperback. I think it's $20. And it's one of those things to keep by your side. I mean, obviously I keep it by on my desk. There's one here and there's one behind me. You can see it. But even I flip back through it. What do I think about that? How do I feel about things? Because sometimes, in the middle of a day, you can change your mind on how you feel about something. But that doesn't necessarily mean it changes your whole outlook on things. So what else? Friday we are going to have a bonus day with prizes. So please make sure you join me on Friday as well. And on Thursday we'll give you some information on how to do that. We're going to do that live on Zoom. I think. I guess I haven't decided that, or I haven't read my notes very well. But we'll meet again on Friday and kind of have a celebratory type of day. Anyway, so for those of you who have read the book and who know me, obviously there is a philosophy behind everything I do, and I will get into that in a second. Specifically, though, it talks about, and I've mentioned this a minute ago, finding a healthy lifestyle that works for you. Because what works for me may not work for you. We're all individuals, and we need to decide what works best for us. Without getting bogged down with, diets. No, I don't believe in diets. Google searches. That's how I started this whole business in the first place, getting lost on Google. But also having others tell us what we should do and what we should think. My job here is to guide. I'm never going to tell you what you should do. Truly, if you read and you listen and you are inspired by what I teach, then that's great. I'm not going to tell you 100% this is going to be perfect for you. So now, for example, I don't have kids at home. I've never had kids at home. So for me, I can get up in the morning and get my workout done, and usually by 8:30, 9 o'clock, it's usually done. I'm in the shower and I start my day. Well, if you have kids at home, you're looking at me going, yeah, right, Denise, that's never going to fly in my house. So if I'm telling you, you have to get up early and get your exercise in before you start your day, you're going to think I'm totally crazy. And it's not going to work for you, and you're just going to tune me out. Now, obviously, you need to find a time that consistently works for you when it comes to getting your exercise in. And consistently, I mean, it could be a different time each day depending on what your schedule is like, your job, your kids, your circumstances, even there are some days that I don't work out in the morning because I have something earlier that one particular day. But anyway, I will tell you though, excuses do not fly. Reasons are one thing. Sometimes, life gets kind of crazy one day, but find the excuses. I just don't have time for anything that I talk about. That doesn't fly, because we can always find time. All of us can find 30 minutes, whether it's, to, make a healthy meal, to get a few steps in, do some meditation. I mean, my meditations truly, I do meditations for 2 minutes because that's about all my brain can work on. And that's okay. Again, that's what works for me. So find what works for you. So back to my philosophy. I think I have a graph. Let me see if I can make this work. Let's see. I'm gonna try something new. Maybe. Okay, a minute ago it told me I could share my screen, but now I'm seeing that I don't know how to do that, so we're not going to share my screen. Okay, so instead, I'll tell you what I was going to show you. So my philosophy, and this is truly what I think of in my teachings as a coach in the health and wellness world. I've been in the health and wellness world for a long time. Picture a graph, like a pie graph, but three pieces of pie. You're going to cut that pie into three. The first piece of that pie says eat real food. The second piece of that pie says make good decisions, and the third piece of that pie says be accountable. Those are the three things in this philosophy that create the foundation of that healthy lifestyle that works for you. Again, for you, not for me, but for you. But each of these pieces is essential. So the thought process is the same, but the pieces that you incorporate into those will be different. Now, should they all be completely equal? And I think it's something like 33.3%, each piece of the pie completely equal. Well, yeah, in a perfect world, obviously. None of us live in a perfect world. So, some days one is a little bit, or some weeks or some months or even some years, one is a little bit, you're focused on one a little bit more than the other. But they all do work together. So think of it as a three-legged stool. I mean, you have the idea of the pie chart, but think of it as a three-legged stool. If a leg is missing, the stool falls over, right? But again, rarely are we at 100% at any time. So, balance 80% of the time is pretty good. So eat real food, make good decisions, be accountable. What else? Real food. What does real food even mean? So we'll get into that in a second. I'm going to sneeze. Sorry, guys. That's one thing. When you schedule something and you have a cold, you just run with it. Anyway, so I know this. So we're going to focus today on eating real food. And deciding what to eat these days is totally confusing. I mean, even the word diet, because a lot of us are still in that diet mindset, is really confusing. And I know that. On the one hand, diet means starving yourself and eating a very narrow menu. On the other hand, and this is probably more appealing, a diet is whatever you eat. That's actually the definition of a diet. For example, now, if you lived in Japan, you would eat a diet of fish and fresh vegetables and rice. If you lived in the Mediterranean, you'd still eat some fish, lots of olive oil, right? Veggies or whatever is grown there. So that's kind of the basis of the diet. Unfortunately, here in the U.S., depending on where you live, the kind of local diet is kind of non-existent. And a lot of us don't have access to healthy, locally grown foods. Unless, of course, you live in California, where it is abundant all year long. For example, here in Minnesota, where I live, I'm surrounded by cornfields and cows for that matter, but anyway. But here they mostly grow soybeans and corn, and the majority of that is feed for the cows, said cows. So they grow the same crops here, year after year. There's not much variety. And I don't know about you, but I'm not really eating soybeans or cow corn. That's just not part of my diet. So you can see where that could be a bit of a challenge. And so this is why we've kind of become more of this mass-produced, processed food kind of country that really focuses on that. The challenge, of course, with that is it's gotten away from being real food, and there's a lot of calories in that stuff. There are a lot of calories in our diet that we don't really need. And so what's happened is people, gurus, dietitians, whomever, maybe not so much dietitians, but people have basically said, okay, let's change the diet and take out all of these food groups. Whether you're talking, keto, vegetarian, paleo. Man, when did eating healthy become so flipping difficult? It's difficult, right? I know. Just give me a second. I'm going to take a quick look over here and make sure I can say hi to everybody else. Hey, Debbie, how you doing? Okay, so I am back. So, like I was saying, this has become really difficult, has it? Eating healthy has become difficult. Eating intuitively, which rarely do we do anymore, is really hard. So, okay, so let's get kind of into, before we really focus on eating real food, why do we even eat? Obviously, our body needs carbohydrates, fats, and proteins in order to, plus the vitamins and minerals, don't forget those, in order for our bodies to function properly. For us to be able to walk and talk and breathe and, do all of the things that our body is meant to, more importantly, and feel good. All of this stuff is great, but if you feel like crap, why? That this is really where I focus on eating real food, because it really does give you what you need without giving you the things you don't need. And seriously, done right, it will help you. Eating intuitively basically is, eating when you're hungry, eating the foods that are good for you without really thinking about it. And that's where eating real food comes in. So eating a diet, there's that diet word, the foods that you eat that are primarily focused on real foods may be the most important things that you can do for your health, body, mind, spirit, emotions, all of those things. So, to my point, eating real food basically gives you that first start to living a healthy, happy life that you're looking for. So no matter what, looking at the three pieces, eat real food, make decisions, be accountable, we need to start somewhere. And I truly wholeheartedly believe, because I've worked with clients, I've done this myself, when you focus on eating real food, focus on the foods that you can eat, not the things that you shouldn't, we don't like shoulds, but really focusing on the foods that are best for us. And I'm going to tell you now, I'm a big fan of 80-20. Can't be perfect. Nothing is perfect, as I said earlier. So if you're focused on eating real food, most of the time, 80% of the time, you're doing really well. So according to my favorite chef, Jamie Oliver, real food doesn't have ingredients. Real food is the ingredients. Think of a chicken breast with tomatoes and onions, maybe some mushrooms, in a little bit of olive oil. I'm making myself hungry. So what do you guys think? Like, when you think of real food, what are the thoughts that are crossing your mind? Is it, are you thinking individual foods? Are you thinking, oh my God, I can't, this is too much for me? What are your thought process? What is your thought process? I'm going to pop over here and just take another look. All right. So, yeah. So one of the one of the comments that I just read is, it's difficult to eat real food. It can be when you're starting out. And I know we've all heard this before, shop the perimeter of the supermarket. We want to eat foods that are as close as possible to the way nature made them. So unprocessed, free of additives and chemicals, all of that stuff, nutrient rich. So these are foods that, let's just think of, your grandmother ate. Those kinds of foods. So what are we really talking about here? What are real foods? Again, they're the ingredients that you put in a main dish to eat, or in a salad, or it's a piece of fruit. So fruits, veggies, number 1 and number 2. Fresh foods from the farmer's market. Absolutely, Debbie. We have a farmer's market here every Saturday, and it actually goes all year round. Yes, even in Minnesota, we have a farmer's market that goes all year round. Now, we may not have tomatoes at that farmer's market in January, but we may have canned tomatoes. We may have some pickled vegetables. So these are some things that, we start with real food, the way kind of nature made them, like when they grow off the plant, when we're talking fruits and veggies. But then there are ways to keep those fruits and veggies throughout the year. I mean, people did it years ago, right? I mean, who's into canning? I've never actually done it myself. I have 256 apples upstairs. I made 2 apple strudels, low sugar, the other day, and I made some applesauce. I have sliced apples that are in the freezer that I'm going to use. I can use down the road for if I want to make an apple pie, if I want to make, if I just want to have apple slices. I'm going to dry some of them. They taste great in salads. So again, focusing on fruits and vegetables first and foremost. Then, of course, we have the nuts and seeds and whole grains. White rice is one of those things people say, well, white rice is a whole grain. It isn't, it isn't. It's actually, white rice has actually, they've taken all of the nutrition out of white rice. So brown rice is better, but some of the ancient grains like amaranth and quinoa, farro, those are full of nutrition. And quinoa is actually a complete protein. So even though we think of it as a carb, it's actually a complete protein. So what else? Beans and legumes. They're a little different, beans and legumes. Some people will argue with me on this one, because, beans can make, your tummy a little disrupted. But again, there are ways to get around that. Cooking them, that's a great way. Canned beans are great. I have a couple of recipes that I actually use whole bean. So I soak them and do whatever I'm supposed to do. And they actually, one, they taste better and they're not as mushy. So these are great additives to that healthy diet. Lean meat and protein and fish. I'm not going to tell you that you shouldn't eat those, because you should. You need the nutrition from each of these, and each one of these foods brings you different nutrition. I mean, even the protein that you get from a piece of fish compared to a lean grass-fed steak, very different, but because they do different things for you. But they're still, when you combine them, over time, you have a piece of steak once, maybe once every 2 weeks, maybe once a week, and then you have fish. You're giving your body all of the different nutrients that it requires. If you just eat one thing or kind of take one thing out, then you're actually missing some of those nutrients, and that's where supplementation comes in, which is a totally different conversation. Let's see. So eating real food is actually a very simple concept, but it can be difficult to adopt because we're so used to everything being processed for us, correct? Excuse me. So again, we want to focus, veggies and fruits, all of those things. So I'm going to kind of focus on the fruits and veggies right now. And this is our first handout for the Motivator. It's the Eat the Rainbow handout and worksheet. It's really pretty. If I knew how to show it to you, I would. But you will find this in the Facebook group under files, and you'll find all of the files in there. So the Eat the Rainbow, it gives you each page, like each color of the rainbow. So red foods like tomatoes and apples, red peppers, all of those, and what they provide, the nutrients they provide. Yellow foods, again, yellow peppers, yellow squash. I even throw bananas in there because they're yellow. Except when you open them, then they're white. But anyway, and so each page shows you like some of the different types of fruits and veggies that you can pick from. And then the last page of that is kind of a check sheet. And it actually does start on Monday, even though today is Tuesday. And so what I want you to do is I want you to print that out and, keep that handy, keep it in the kitchen, where you're prepping food. So, as you're kind of looking through, you're like, oh, look, I made a salad today. I've got lettuce, green food. I've got yellow pepper, oop, yellow food. I've got tomatoes, oop, red food. Ooh, I'm going to put some blueberries in there. Oop, blue food, or I guess they consider it purple food. So all of these things, again, all of these vegetables and fruits have different nutritional value. And so you want to mix them up. You don't want to eat the same thing day in and day out. One, because that's really boring. And that's where people kind of go wrong when it comes to like starting a healthy or up-leveling their healthy lifestyle. Like I said, each color has different vitamins. Some of them have antioxidants, which is a big word. Antioxidants fight internal inflammation. And we can have a whole conversation about inflammation, which is really important. Inflammation is really the cause of so many disease states that we have that we're struggling from. And when we focus on eating real food, truly we can rid ourselves of some of those disease states. Now, it takes some time. None of this is going to happen overnight. We know that. And that's one of the reasons why I want you to stay with me for all 3 days and then join me again on Friday for the bonus day. Let me see what else. So what are the challenges? So let's talk a little bit again about some more challenges that we may have with eating real food or eating a variety. Okay, sure. One thing, eating organic. Do you have to eat organic? I'm a firm believer in if you can afford it, great. There are certain things there. It's called the Dirty Dozen. It's through the Environmental Work Group, and you can find them online. They come up with the top 10 kind of dirtiest foods that have the most pesticides and those kinds of things. So in that case, if you can get those organic, strawberries is like a number one thing, and I love strawberries. But there are times when, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pay $8 for a pint of strawberries because they're organic. So I omit that. Instead, maybe I go to the frozen fruit aisle and get frozen organic strawberries. A lot cheaper, still have great flavor, and they also have, when again, they're cheaper, but they also have the nutrition, because what they do is those are actually, they're probably even better for us, to be truth be told, unless you're getting them locally, because they are frozen as soon as they're picked. So fresh fruit, frozen right away, lots of nutrients right in there. So there we go. So again, I want you to print out the rainbow, eat the rainbow, take a look at what you're eating, and check it all off. Let's see, what else do I want to talk to you guys about today? I talked about organic. Yep. Okay. So another thing about organic, there are certain places that you can go to. Aldi, for example. For years, my mom had been going to Aldi, give it I'm not sure how you say it. My mom had been going there and saying, oh, you get they have really good selection of organic foods, fruits and veggies. And, so they're a little hit or miss. Sometimes they have things that they don't another time. But that's a great opportunity to kind of check out some of these, add these organic foods to your diet. Again, there's that word diet, meaning the foods that we eat, right? Great. What else? GMOs. Okay, so GMOs. That's a tough one. The health person in me wants to say, stay away completely from GMOs. And we probably should, as much as we can. It's not always possible. So again, 80-20. If you're doing 80% if you're doing it right 80% of the time, 20%, it's okay. Now think of where GMOs came from. GMOs have been great for countries, third world countries, where they've been struggling with famine and drought, and they have invented, researched, made seeds that are drought resistant, so they can actually grow food, so people in those countries aren't starving anymore. Yes, maybe they are eating a lot more rice than I would normally say is good, but these people are not starving. They're finding a way to sustain themselves and move forward. So in that respect, GMOs are good. We don't know 100%, what they're going to do or what they can do in our body internally. Are they causing inflammation? It's very possible. So again, stay away from them if you can, but if every now and then one of them, something, kind of finds its way in, it's okay. Okay? It's okay. Any other questions about that? Okay. No. Okay, what else? I want you to think of this. When you think of, this eating real food, I want you to think of all of the amazing foods that there are for you to eat. I mean, think of the plethora of fruits and veggies, all the different types of beans and legumes. What else? The types of, carbohydrates that are there. I mentioned a few before, amaranth and farro, quinoa. I have something that I bought at the farmer's market in California when I was out there a couple months ago. And it's an ancient grain that I never heard of. So I bought it, and it's great. It's a little nutty. It's not mushy. It's a little nutty. It's got a great flavor. And so, so many great things. Now, I don't want you to think of like, oh, I can't eat Doritos. Well, none of us should actually really be eating Doritos, because I don't know if you've experienced this, but you can't just eat one Dorito. They do that on purpose. They make the Doritos so we eat the entire bag. Problem with that: 1, inflammation. 2, lots of calories. 3, processed foods. 4, Do you ever notice that a bag of Doritos can sit on a shelf for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years and not go bad? They could probably sit on the shelf from now into eternity and not go bad. That can't be good for our system. So again, fake food. That's kind of fake food. That's not real food. Am I going to tell you never to eat a Dorito again? Of course not. Super Bowl Sunday, eat the Doritos. Have a good time. Again, 80-20. Are there other options other than Doritos? Probably. Healthier options? Probably. But you know what? If you have a Dorito, go for it. And I want you to eat the Dorito, not the bag of Doritos. I want you to eat the Doritos. Enjoy every one of them that you eat without any guilt. And then, as my friend Christy used to say, make it right in the very next bite. So the next thing you have Doritos, watching a game or whatever at, say at noon. When it's dinner time, make a better choice. Make sure it's, real food, those kinds of choices. And that as we start eating real foods more and more, number one, it'll be easier. Number two, you'll notice that you feel good. One of the things that is so important when it comes to research, especially when it comes to, how we feel, function, and survive. That's kind of a medical term. That's what they're looking for when they're doing research. How does a patient feel? How do they function? How are they surviving? When it comes to food and diet, it's kind of hard for people to find that because a lot of it is based on what we think and how we feel. But I think it's really important for us to realize that often we don't know that we've been feeling crappy until we start feeling good. Thoughts on that one? We don't realize that we haven't been feeling good until feeling bad until we start feeling good. So I think it's really, really important that, in this, eat real food, make good decisions, be accountable, that we're actually being very mindful about what we're eating, when we're eating, and how we feel. Let's see. What else do I have for you guys today? I'm just reading through my notes. Okay, I mentioned eating intuitively and not taking full food groups out of your diet. Again, I'm going to just point on that. Eating real food, when you eat real food, you're not taking full food groups out of your diet. Now, you may have noticed, I didn't mention dairy. I'm not against dairy. Dairy does tend to be something that can cause inflammation in people. A lot of people, especially in more and more, are lactose intolerant, or it's not exactly an allergy, but it is an intolerance. So your tummy may not feel good. You may get kind of gassy, or you kind of feel like, ooh, I don't feel so great. So it's not something that I say, yes, eat a lot of dairy. Again, I don't think you have to take it out of your diet, but it's one of those things that I would just be more careful of. Now, for example, 2 of my favorite foods. Ready for this? Those of you who know me well know what I'm going to say. My 2 favorite foods in the world. Ready? Donuts. Pizza. Donuts and pizza. Now, if you look at the real food list, neither one of them are on there. But, for me, those are 2 things that I never want to not have ever again. Never not. That's a double negative. I think I just made a double negative, which makes it a positive. Anyway, a little bit of chemistry and a little bit of my English teacher coming back into my mind. But anyway, a donut is something that I just enjoy. Maybe I have a donut once a month. Maybe I have one once every, 3 or 4 months. But if there's a donut and somebody offers me a donut, and I say thank you very much, and I'm going to enjoy it. Now, we were talking about dairy, so donut, no dairy, but anyway. So now we'll get to the dairy piece. Pizza has cheese on it. Melted cheese, a lot of cheese, a lot of cheese. And I love pizza. So that means I eat cheese, dairy, on that pizza. Again, if I know I'm going to have pizza on Friday, now very often Mark and I will go to the Italian restaurant here in town and have one of their pizzas. They're not very big, they're about this big, but we'll split that pizza. Ooh, that's another concept that we can talk about. We'll split that pizza. but I know there's a ton of cheese on it. So if I know I'm going to have that pizza, I'm not going to eat cheese at all that day, or maybe even the day before. Just to again, this is where a little bit of mindfulness comes in. And again, if we're focusing on the real food list, cheese isn't on that list. It's not on the do not eat list. We don't have one of those. It's just kind of on that, a little bit here and there list. So again, if we're eating real food and we're eating from that list, and the list of food, when you look at it, fruits, veggies, whole grains, beans, chicken, blah, 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 it doesn't look like a lot until you actually go and say, okay, fruits, there's a ton of fruit. Veggies, oh my God, there's so many veggies, and this time of year, they are plentiful. Chicken, okay, so there's not a lot, a lot of chicken or poultry, but you can do chicken, you can do chicken breast, you can do chicken thighs, you can do, get a whole chicken. You can saute that chicken with olive oil, or last night I made a stir fry. I added a little bit of coconut oil, healthy fat. All of these things, there's so many different ways that you can look at that and eat real food every single day. Let's start with one meal a day, though. How does that sound? Is that fair? One meal a day. Choose a meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner. Pick one. That's what I want you to do for this week. Pick one meal that you're going to eat real food. Breakfast is probably the easiest. Non-GMO oats, a little bit of almond milk, a little bit of fruit, maybe a banana to go in it, some cinnamon, add some flavor. That's a whole food breakfast. I had a shake this morning for breakfast. It's a whole food protein shake. There you go, whole food protein shake. One meal. And then once you get that kind of down and you go to the supermarket and you're starting to really get this concept, then maybe go to two. So maybe focus for an entire month on getting one meal right. And then you can move to the next. So then you do lunch. Lunch could be easy. It could be a tomato soup or a vegetable soup. Maybe it's a salad. Maybe it's leftovers from the night before. I know I have leftovers from last night. Like I said, I made a stir fry. I have chicken stir fry. I have every colorful veggie in there. There's carrots, there's asparagus, there's broccoli, there's some onions in there, there's peppers in there, and a little bit of chicken. How bad is that? I mean, that's an easy one. So that's one of the concepts that I talk about, and kind of further into what I do with my clients is, talk about how do we, make whole foods, real foods, how do we make it work for us and make it simple where we're not cooking all the time. I cook 3 days a week. Basically, I cook 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week. One night, admittedly, one night we go out for dinner. And tonight we're going out for dinner because it's my anniversary. So typically we'll go out one night for dinner. But those other nights, if I make chicken, if I have 4 pieces of chicken, I'm going to cook 2 one way and I'm going to cook 2 another. So this is a topic that we'll talk about more down the road in the healthy living, when it comes to healthy living, happy life. So just to reiterate, I want you to get started today to eat real food, focus on that. And again, this is going to help you find that healthy lifestyle that works for you, because you're going to find some fruits and veggies that you absolutely do not like. I know Mark will not eat kale. I've actually gotten to the point where I'm I've tried to like kale. I've really tried. My heart of hearts, I've tried. Don't like it. Guess what? There's so many other types of green vegetables. I'm going to eat them instead. So as you go through this, you'll find the things that you absolutely will not eat again, but you'll also be pleasantly surprised and find things that you like. So another thing that I have added, and this you'll find this in the file. So to make this transition really simple, you will find in the file section of the Facebook group, it's called the Eat This Not That guide. Now we've seen those books, right? Eat this food, not that food. Simple. Yeah, right. The concept is simple, but when you're at the supermarket and you're going, okay, well, do I pick this one or do I pick this one? This guide will help you do that. And again, we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that on Friday during our bonus section. Last thing I want to talk about today, and I'm going to excuse myself and sneeze here. Excuse me, everyone. Thank you for your patience with me with my my allergies or my cold, whatever it is that I have here. I'm going to have a cup of tea. This is another thing that I love. I drink tea. In the morning, it is caffeinated. In the afternoon, naturally non-caffeinated. Again, a topic we can talk about in a future conversation. So the guide will really help you to transition. But the last concept I want to talk about when we're talking about eating real food is calories do count. You actually can eat too much real food. So you're probably going to not overeat when it comes to broccoli. I can't imagine. Maybe you really love broccoli, but I don't think most people really love broccoli that much. I beg your pardon. But calorie counting at the end of the day, really, the calories that you're eating, the calories that you're expending really does count. So you really do need to kind of pay attention to, the calories that you're eating, making sure that they're real food, that they're quality foods. But you also want to make sure, if you know how many calories that work for you. And there is a calorie calculator. I'll put that into the Facebook group so you can get an idea. I'm 5 foot tall, so the number of calories that my body requires to basically function properly is a lot less than my husband, who's 5'10". His body needs more calories. And you can tell, he's a lot bigger than me. So obviously he needs more calories for his body to stay in good optimal health. So I will put that in there so we all know. We have to know where we're starting today in order to move forward. So once you know what that is, I'm not a big fan of counting every single calorie, but to have an idea. Fruits and veggies, especially veggies, don't have a lot of calories, so you can eat a ton of those if you want. My best friend from college, she always says, she's like, I love to eat. She's like, it's one of her favorite things. And so what she does is her plate, when I look at her plate, is full of veggies. And then she has other stuff that, around it. But because for her, it's her mindset, it's the way she has always kind of managed food and calorie intake for herself, is really focusing on the veggies first and then adding the other calories in around it. So that, I'm going to leave you with that when it comes to calories. Again, you can eat too much real food. And so let's just pay attention. Pay attention to what you're eating. Pay attention to what you like. I want to say on the flip side, just real quick, eating too few calories is actually a problem as well. Eating too few calories, one, leads to binge eating. If you're not eating enough, you're hungry. If you're hungry, you're hangry. And if you're hangry, you are tired, you're weak, and it just leads to binge eating. So make sure we're fueling make sure you're fueling your body properly. Again, I'll take a look, or I'll put that calorie calculator in the Facebook group so you guys can take a look and really know where you are today, so you can get better at where you can get to where you want to be to find that healthy, happy lifestyle. So again, the two things that I have for you in the Facebook group are the Eat the Rainbow handout. And again, that last page is your check sheet, so make sure you check out, you print that off. The second thing is the Eat This, Not That guide. It's just a few pages. It's just one of those things to help you stay mindful. If you have questions, please, please, please feel free to add them here in the Facebook group. That is probably the best place to add them, because I will be looking in here. What else do I have for you before I let you guys go? And I'm at 45 minutes, so I thank you for joining me today, day one of the Healthy Living Happy Life. 3-day motivator. Again, I'm Denise Stegall. I am your guide here, and I'm excited to see you. If you have questions, again, about the handouts, put them in the Facebook group and I'll answer them there. I'll be here again tomorrow, same place, same time. I'm in the Facebook group here at 11 Central Standard Time. That's 12 o'clock if you're on the East Coast. And I am so excited to help you get to this next stage, to motivate you to enjoy more real foods. That's all I have for you today. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.